Hey, if you're hearing from Gotham, you might be in danger. This isn't just a costume party, it's Halloween, and the lines are gone. The organs are playing, the glass is shattering, and the masks aren't hiding the madness, they're letting it out. Tune in and listen close, because the sound of the past collapsing under the weight of the T-Rex is the only warning you'll get tonight. You are listening to Gotham City Radio, the voice of Gotham since 1945, broadcasting tonight from Wayne Manor with our host, Aubrey James. The time is midnight.
Good evening, Gotham. It's the witching hour on the witching night. I'm Aubrey James, here with you, navigating the beautiful, terrifyingly chaotic symphony of Halloween. Tonight, the city is off its leash. The madness of Arkham has spilled onto the streets, disguised as costumes. And the line between the city's residents and its villains is delightfully impossible to find. We're keeping vigil over the landscape of amplified reality, and tonight, our focus is the Gotham Museum of Natural History. The old Gothic halls are supposed to be closed, yet the commotion is centralized there. On any other night, the museum holds the dead past, dinosaurs, forgotten artifacts, the petrified memory of history. But on this night, those exhibits feel strangely alive, breathing the chaos of the city. The museum is holding its annual Night of the Macabre Gala, and the usual air of academic curiosity has been shattered by something far more primal. The sounds coming from that grand old building aren't just party noise. They are screams mixed with cackles, punctuated by the heavy, rhythmic thudding that suggests something massive and uncontrolled is moving through the marble halls. I hear music, that awful, grand organ music, and beneath it, the distinct sound of shattering glass, followed by what sounds like heavy, panting breaths, muffled, but close. It's the sound of a beautiful facade collapsing into real, terrifying chaos. The masks are coming alive, and the phone lines are buzzing. Let's welcome our first voice on this terrifying night. You're on Gotham City Radio. Name and location, please.
Aubrey, this is Vera, calling from a block away from the museum. I was trying to get home. There are people running, but they're not running from the costumes, they're running with them. What is happening inside that museum, and why does the air smell like cheap cologne and burnt pumpkins?
Vera, thank you for calling. You've perfectly captured the sensory overload of this evening. You said people are running with costumes, not from them. What does that blurring of the line between spectator and participant tell you about the nature of the chaos tonight?
It means the chaos is viral, Aubrey. It's not a bank robber wearing a mask. It's the masks infecting the bystanders. It means the usual rules of Halloween, where the terror is fake, are completely broken. Everyone is taking part, even if they don't know it.
The chaos is viral. A sobering thought for a night of carefree disguise. If the usual fear of the night has dissolved, what is the single most terrifying thing a civilian can encounter in that museum environment right now?
It's realizing that the person in the clown suit next to you isn't acting. It's the moment the laugh stops being fake. That's the scariest thing in Gotham tonight.
The moment the laugh stops being fake. We must all remain vigilant, Vera. Please, remember to like and subscribe. The moment the laugh stops being fake. That is the true, raw horror of a Gotham Halloween, Vera. Your observation about the chaos being viral is key. It means the danger isn't confined to the people who planned the heist, but is actively spreading through imitation and complicity across the crowd. It's a psychological contagion that turns bystanders into accidental participants, stripping away their sense of safety and blurring their moral boundaries. We must recognize that the biggest threat tonight is not necessarily the villain with the biggest prop, but the overwhelming anonymity and permissiveness that the costumed environment provides. That blurring of the line, where running with the costumes feels natural, is the most insidious part of this theatrical assault on civic order. We understand the panic and the urge to flee that toxic environment, but we cannot afford to let that kind of cynicism take root. We must remain vigilant against that psychological infection and hold on to the clear distinction between performance and genuine malice. The cheap cologne and burnt pumpkin you smell may be part of the show, but the screams and the crashing glass are terrifyingly real. Thank you for calling in and sharing the view from the street, Vera, and for confirming the nature of this escalating chaos. Another caller is on the line. Please state your name and location.
Aubrey, this is Mark. I'm calling from Central Dispatch. We're tracking the mayhem at the museum. That rhythmic thudding you heard, that's not a sound system failing. That's the sound of the T-Rex skeleton being dragged across the main hall marble. It's a full-scale property theft happening in plain sight.
Mark, thank you for providing that terrifying context. A T-Rex skeleton. What level of organization and force does it take to move a priceless, multi-ton exhibit like that? Especially on a night when security is focused on crowd control.
It takes heavy machinery, Aubrey, and absolute coordination, likely using the museum's service elevators and heavy-duty rigging. But the main thing it requires is a distraction, so massive and theatrical that no one notices the real heist. The chaos is the cover.
The chaos is the cover. The perfect Gotham crime. If the T-Rex is being stolen, what is the value? Is it the bones themselves? Or the symbolism of taking the biggest thing in the room?
It's symbolism. Stealing the T-Rex says, your history is irrelevant. Your science is fragile. Your order is gone. It's an act of dominance over the city's past. The value is the psychological terror it creates.
Psychological terror, delivered via prehistoric theft. Please like and subscribe, Mark, and be safe in that dispatch center. That was Mark from Central Dispatch, giving us a grim yet fascinating glimpse into the unfolding nightmare at the Gotham Museum. The image of a prehistoric giant being hauled across marble floors, bones clattering under floodlights and chaos, is one that will haunt this city for years. It's not just theft. It's a statement carved in fear and precision. A reminder that in Gotham, even history isn't safe from the shadows. And as the rain continues to fall, outside these studio windows, we're left wondering, who orchestrates such grandeur in destruction? And to what end? Perhaps we'll find out soon enough. We have another caller waiting on the line. Please, state your name and location.
Aubrey, this is Lisa from the West End. My daughter is an intern at the museum gala tonight. I heard a sound on your broadcast, the shattering glass. Was that the front doors, or was that the exhibit cases? If they're breaking the exhibits, that means the criminals have given up on simple theft and are focused on destruction.
Lisa, thank you for sharing your deep concern. The sound of destruction is sadly prevalent tonight. If that glass shattering is from the exhibit cases, what does that shift from stealing history to destroying memory signify about the motive?
It means the motive is ideological. It's not about money. It's about erasing what the museum represents. Order, time, and documented history. They are declaring war on the very concept of the past.
War on the past. What does a city like Gotham, so defined by its history and trauma, lose when its documented memory is scattered and scattered on the marble floor?
It loses its moral compass. It loses the ability to measure how bad things are now against how bad they were then. They want to make the chaos feel timeless, like it's always been this way.
Making chaos timeless. That's the deepest kind of anarchy. Thank you, Lisa. We hope for your daughter's swift and safe return. Please like and subscribe. That was Lisa from the West End. A mother's fear echoing through the storm tonight. Her words cut deep. A war on the past. A deliberate erasure of memory. Gotham is always balanced on the edge between remembering and forgetting. But when its history is smashed to pieces on marble floors, what anchors are left to hold us steady? We'll keep our signal strong as the city trembles. We have another caller waiting on the line. Please state your name and location.
Aubrey, this is Ethan from the forensics lab. The organ music you're hearing, that heavy theatrical sound, it's not random, it's timed. It seems to peak right before the sound of a scream or a crash. Is the music being used just for ambiance, or is it a tool of the criminals?
Ethan, a fascinating auditory detail. You're suggesting the music is a tool. How could a grand organ piece be used tactically by criminals staging a major heist and takeover?
It's psychological masking. The loud music provides auditory cover for the noise of the machinery Mark mentioned. The cranes, the rollers, the cutting torches. It's an emotional distraction for the victims and a noise buffer for the operation.
A sound buffer for the heist. It suggests this is a villain who understands theatrics and engineering. But what is the effect of that timed theatrical music on the people trapped inside the museum tonight?
It's disorientation. The music tells their brains the terror is part of the show, slowing down their fight-or-flight response. The chaos becomes a predictable, rhythmic performance that prevents rational escape.
Making chaos a predictable performance. A sinister, sonic manipulation. Thank you, Ethan. Please like and subscribe. That was Ethan from the forensics lab, peeling back yet another layer of Gotham's orchestral nightmare. The notion that the organ music itself, majestic, haunting, deliberate, could be weaponized as part of the crime is chilling. The thieves aren't just stealing in silence. They're composing terror in real time, turning chaos into a symphony. They blur the line between art and atrocity, between performance and panic. As the echoes of that organ spill through the city's rain-soaked streets, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just a heist. It's a production. And every sound, every scream, every note has been scored with precision. Gotham listens, afraid to breathe between the beats. We have another caller waiting on the line. Please state your name and location.
Aubrey, this is Dr. Lee calling from the medical examiner's office. My concern is the health of the hostages. The sheer sensory overload of a highly toxic chemical, a massive T-Rex being dragged, and deafening organ music is a unique combination. What is the most immediate, non-physical threat to the people trapped inside tonight?
Dr. Lee, thank you for focusing on the human cost. Beyond physical injury, what is the immediate, overriding psychological threat posed by this sensory assault?
It's dissociation. The combination of terror and theatrical music will cause their minds to disconnect from reality. They won't fight back. They'll simply become compliant observers of their own victimization. They are being paralyzed by performance.
Paralyzed by performance. A terrifying insight. If this sensory overload is designed to induce dissociation, what is the single, simple act that could break the spell and restore the victim's agency?
Something that introduces unfiltered reality. A single moment of absolute, complete silence, or a voice speaking clear, unadorned truth. Something that cuts through the noise and the costumes.
The need for unfiltered reality. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Please like and subscribe. That was Dr. Lee from the medical examiner's office. Cool, clinical, and yet profoundly human in her warning. Paralyzed by performance. What a phrase. It paints a picture of terrified souls frozen beneath the glow of chandeliers, watching their own nightmare unfold, as if it were theater. The idea that silence itself, one brief, uncorrupted moment, could save them, feels both poetic and tragic. In a city that never stops making noise, truth may be the only sound left that matters. As the storm outside rages on, Gotham trembles under a symphony of chaos, where fear is orchestrated and silence is rebellion. Perhaps somewhere in that museum, someone is still brave enough to speak the truth Dr. Lee described. Until then, we'll keep the frequency open. We have another caller waiting on the line. Please, state your name and location.
Aubrey, this is Robert. I'm a retired dock worker. You talk about the T-Rex being stolen. I'm telling you, that thing weighs tons. No ordinary truck is moving that. That whole operation needs a super heavy lift transport, the kind only 2 or 3 legitimate companies in Gotham own. Why isn't the police checking the manifests of those few companies right now?
Robert, you bring us back to the logistics of corruption. If only a few companies have the capacity to move that skeleton, what does the police's inaction signify about the operation?
It signifies high-level protection. The heist isn't being run by some guy in a cheap mask. It's protected by the same people who signed the transport contracts. The crime is organized, sanctioned, and running on a very expensive timetable.
Sanctioned chaos. What would be the only true check on that kind of protected corporate-level crime? If the police are compromised.
Only a threat to the transport assets themselves. If that heavy lift transport is destroyed, the whole operation, the theatrics, the music, the T-Rex, all of it falls apart because they can't get their prize out of the city.
A threat to the assets. The vulnerability is the escape route. Thank you, Robert. Please like and subscribe. That was Robert, a voice from Gotham's docks, grounded in steel and sweat, cutting straight through the theatrics to expose the machinery beneath the madness. His words remind us that behind every symbol of chaos, there's still a ledger, a signature, and a shipment schedule. Sanctioned chaos, he called it. Crime written on official paper, stamped and sealed by unseen hands. The corruption isn't in the shadows tonight. It's standing under the floodlights, pretending to keep order, while the city's history is being carted away. And if the only weakness in such a vast operation lies in its escape route, perhaps the story of this night will end not in the museum's marble halls, but on the wet asphalt of Gotham's industrial roads. We'll keep our frequency open for the truth as it rumbles closer. Somewhere in the noise, truth keeps calling back. Let's see who it is this time. State your name and location.
Aubrey, I'm Chloe, from the community center. My question is about the costumes. When everyone is wearing a mask, the heroes, the villains, the party guests, how do you know who to trust? The entire city is fighting a war of anonymity tonight.
Chloe, thank you for touching on that profound Halloween anxiety. When the city becomes a carnival of masks, what is the one true indicator of intent that transcends the costume?
It's the eyes. The mask covers the face, but it doesn't cover the eyes. The chaos is a distraction, but the eyes will always tell you if the person is truly committed to harm or just playing a part.
The eyes, the windows to the soul, unmasked. If the Batman is in there, concealed by the crowd and the masks, how does he use the anonymity of the night to his advantage?
He uses it to disappear into the noise. He doesn't need to stand out. He needs to move like any other shadow, letting the sheer number of masks serve as his greatest camouflage.
Disappearing into the noise. Thank you, Chloe. Please like and subscribe. That was Chloe from the community center, reminding us that even in a city obsessed with masks, the truth still flickers in the eyes. Gotham tonight is a masquerade of motives. Heroes and villains moving side by side beneath dripping rooftops, each pretending to be something they're not. But in the glare of chaos, authenticity becomes a rare and dangerous thing. The eyes don't lie, even when the city does. And as the storm deepens and the masks melt into the dark, another signal hums through our frequency. Someone else is waiting to be heard. Step out of the static, caller. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Aubrey, this is Simon. I monitor historical auction markets. If the T-Rex skeleton is the target, its value isn't just in the bones. The true value is in its provenance, the history of the fossil. What information is tied to that skeleton that would be worth risking a major museum heist?
Simon, a crucial detail. You suggest the skeleton is a key, not a commodity. What kind of secret could be literally buried within the documented history of a 70-million-year-old old fossil.
Perhaps the skeleton's discovery was tied to a modern scandal. A land deed fraud, a suppressed mineral find, or an old quiet murder that occurred at the original dig site. Stealing the skeleton is really about destroying the documentation that accompanies it.
Destroying the documentation. The physical theft is simply a cover for the administrative crime. What is the risk of allowing a historical record of that magnitude to be permanently erased by the chaos of this night?
The risk is that the perpetrators can rewrite the financial or political history of the city with impunity, claiming that the proof was simply destroyed in the riot. It's the ultimate erasure.
The ultimate erasure. Thank you, Simon. Please like and subscribe. That was Simon, cutting through the smoke with the precision of an archivist's scalpel. His words remind us that not all crimes are about what's taken. Some are about what's erased. A fossil turned into a key, a ledger buried beneath marble and dust, and the city's truth rewritten under the cover of thunder. Tonight's thieves aren't just stealing bones. They're excavating Gotham's memory and burying it all over again. The rain keeps drumming, and the signal doesn't sleep. Another voice is rising through the interference, waiting to be heard. Step forward from the shadows, caller. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Aubrey, I'm calling from a supply closet in the museum. I'm maintenance staff. The heavy, panting breaths you heard, that's not a single person. That's the sound of the rigging crew. There are at least 5 of them, and they are using adrenaline stimulants to move that thing. They are fighting exhaustion and pain to meet their deadline.
Danny, steady yourself. You are in a position of extreme danger. The use of powerful stimulants suggests a rigid deadline. Why is speed so critical to a heist where the chaos is already providing cover?
Because the organ music is a timed cue. It's not continuous. It stops at precisely 1 a.m., and when it stops, the main service elevators will be locked down for security protocol, trapping them inside with the T-Rex. They have to move it out now.
A rigid single-hour window. That structural deadline is the operation's greatest vulnerability. What is the one thing a maintenance worker could do, safely, to slow down the crew's progress without directly engaging them?
I could access the internal climate controls near the main service bay. If I drop the temperature suddenly, the extreme cold will amplify the effects of the stimulants, causing massive disorientation and slowing them down just enough.
A brilliant tactic using the building against them. Danny, be careful. That kind of chemical disorientation could be dangerous. Please like and subscribe. That was Danny, calling from a supply closet deep inside the Gotham Museum, his voice barely cutting through the static. A maintenance worker turned reluctant witness to the crime of the century. What he's describing isn't chaos, it's choreography. A rigging crew of 5 men, running on adrenaline stimulants, dragging ancient bones across marble floors under the command of a ticking clock. The sound we thought was panic is actually precision. A mechanical ballet fueled by desperation and chemistry. They're not just fighting security systems tonight. They're fighting their own biology to meet a single, merciless deadline. The organ music, he says, is their metronome. When it stops at 1 o'clock, the service elevators seal, and the heist collapses in on itself. Every scream, every note, every heartbeat between now and then is part of that schedule. Danny's plan to use the museum's own systems to fight back is a testament to Gotham's resilience. Using the walls, the wires, the air itself is quiet resistance. Whatever happens next, the chill in that building won't just come from the climate controls. It'll come from the dawning realization that the city is listening. And so are we. Another signal is breaking through the noise. Who's calling next? And where are you tonight?
Aubrey, this is Evelyn. I remember the museum's first gala in 1948. It was the same kind of chaos, only with actual socialites, not costumed thugs. My question is about the organ music. It's Wagner, isn't it? Something deeply theatrical. Why do the villains in Gotham always choose classical or operatic music for their worst acts of terror?
Evelyn, thank you for that historical perspective. The choice of music is fascinating. Why do the villains select grand classical works, music that suggests order and structure to accompany their acts of destructive chaos?
Because it elevates the crime. It makes the criminals feel like they are artists, not thugs. It attempts to give the chaos meaning, to make their destruction a profound statement on society. It's an ego trip set to the soundtrack of history.
Elevating chaos into art. It's the performance principle applied to anarchy. If the music stops at 1 a.m., as Danny suggested, what emotion will replace the grandiosity when the criminals realize their performance is over?
It will be raw panic. The moment the music stops, they revert from gods to mere criminals trapped inside a building. The silence will be their moment of greatest psychological vulnerability.
The silence will be their undoing. Thank you, Evelyn. Please like and subscribe. That was Evelyn, her voice carrying the weight of decades, remembering a Gotham that once celebrated beauty inside those same marble halls. Tonight, the same chandeliers shimmer over terror instead of champagne. Her insight cuts through the noise. The villain's devotion to grandeur isn't taste, it's delusion. They drape their violence in the language of art, dressing anarchy in velvet and violins. Wagner, she says, and of course it would be, nothing less than the music of gods for those who mistake their cruelty for creation. And yet, even gods fall silent. When the final note dies at 1 o'clock, that silence will strip the theater away, leaving only sweat, fear, and men dragging bones through the dark. The performance ends, and what's left is the truth of their humanity, ugly, panicked, and small. The rain hasn't stopped, and neither has Gotham. Another voice is tuning into the frequency. Let's bring them in. Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Aubrey, this is Miles from the Insurance Review Board. You're making this T-Rex skeleton sound like a national treasure, but statistically, the biggest heist risk in a museum is always the small portable items. The gems, the gold coins, the priceless rings. Why are we focused on the spectacle when the real loot is probably being pocketed by the party guests in the chaos?
Miles, you bring a cold dose of statistical reality to our theatrical crisis. You suggest the spectacle of the T-Rex theft is deliberately hiding a simultaneous, more profitable operation. What is the risk of allowing the police to remain focused solely on the large, visible target?
The risk is that they miss the untold number of small losses. The chaos is the cover for dozens of simultaneous individual acts of theft by opportunists in the crowd. The cumulative loss is probably greater than the T-Rex itself.
The invisible theft happening in the noise. What would be the only way for the Batman to address this small chaos without losing sight of the main structural threat?
He can't. He has to choose. Either he stops the symbolic destruction of the T-Rex, or he addresses the systemic corruption of the crowd. It's a classic Gotham dilemma. Choose the spectacle or choose the stats.
A choice between narrative and data. Thank you, Miles. Please like and subscribe. That was Miles from the Insurance Review Board, cool, clinical, and unromantic in his assessment of the night's madness. He reminds us that while the city fixates on the grand theft, the spectacle of a dinosaur skeleton vanishing into the rain, the real bleeding happens quietly in the corners. Rings, coins, artifacts, small things with immense value slipping into pockets while everyone's eyes are on the stage. It's the perfect Gotham illusion. Make the crime big enough, loud enough, and you'll never see the smaller ones eating away at the foundation. The choice Miles describes, the spectacle or the stats, is the same one Gotham faces every night. Do we fight the story or the system? Do we chase the monster or the men counting on us to look away? Somewhere in that balance, the Batman is deciding his next move. And as we wait, the static hums with another signal, another voice, trying to break through the noise. Go ahead, caller. You're live on Gotham's radio. Tell us your name and where you're calling from and where you...
Aubrey, this is Susan. I talk paleontology. The T-Rex skeleton isn't just one piece. It's hundreds of pieces bolted together by a central structural armature. If they are dragging it, they must be placing immense stress on that armature. If the criminal team is fighting exhaustion, what is the single greatest physical risk to their operation?
Susan, a mechanical vulnerability. What happens when immense force is applied to that central armature while fighting a deadline and exhaustion?
The armature will snap at its weakest point, likely the neck or the tail joint. The skeleton will collapse into hundreds of pieces. This isn't just a loss, it's a toxic disaster for them, as they can't reassemble it in the rush.
A disaster that forces them to abandon the prize. If the Batman is aware of this structural weakness, how can he use the physics of the skeleton itself as a weapon?
He doesn't need to fight the men directly. He just needs to increase the stress on one of the rigging lines. A subtle cut, a slight tug, just enough to push the exhausted crew beyond the skeleton's structural limit.
Using the structure's integrity against its thieves. Thank you, Susan. Please like and subscribe. That was Susan, the paleontology teacher who knows the skeleton like a living blueprint, reminding us that the T-Rex is not a single slab, but an engineered assembly of hundreds of parts bound by a central armature. Under immense, uneven strain, those joints will betray you. A snapped neck or a failed tail joint would turn the prize into a ruin of scattered bones. In plain terms, the more they rush, and the more the riggers push past their limits, the likelier it becomes that the whole thing will catastrophically come apart, destroyed beyond hurried repair. That fragility is both the thieves' greatest risk and the city's narrow hope. But let me be clear, we won't be sketching ways to break things on the air. What matters is the pattern Susan describes: exhaustion, overstrain, and a brittle engineering truth that makes this heist far less invincible than it looks. As the night tightens its hold, another voice is cutting through the interference. Caller, step out of the dark and tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Aubrey, this is Vic again. I used to run security for that museum back in the 90s. The main service bay where they're trying to move that T-Rex leads out to a single, narrow freight ramp that crosses the old electrical conduit. If they overload that ramp, it collapses.
Vic, thank you for your critical infrastructure memory. You suggest the escape route itself is a trap. If they overload that freight ramp, what is the most dangerous consequence for the criminals?
The consequence isn't just the fall. The ramp collapses onto the main power grid junction for that entire district. The explosion and subsequent blackout would lock down the museum permanently and cut all their communication and escape routes.
An immediate, total blackout. If the Batman knows this, how can he leverage the ramp without causing a catastrophe for the entire district?
He doesn't have to collapse the ramp. He just has to simulate the collapse. A strategically timed weight drop, a well-placed explosive charge near the conduit to spook the crew into abandoning the load before they cross the point of no return.
Simulating catastrophic failure. Thank you, Vic. Please like and subscribe. That was Vic, back on the line with the kind of memory only long nights and old paychecks can buy, reminding us that the museum's freight ramp isn't merely a road out of the marble halls. It's a choke point built over the city's very veins. Overload that narrow ramp, and you don't just drop a load. You threaten the junction that keeps half the district alive. Vic's voice trembles with the practical knowledge of someone who's seen scaffolding fail and lights go out. For the criminals, the ramp is both an artery and an Achilles heel, and the risk of catastrophic, cascading failure is terrifyingly real. That danger is why we won't speculate about how to force a collapse or simulate disaster on air. Those are decisions for trained responders and command centers, not late-night theorists. What Vic gives us instead is a map of consequence. A blackout would choke communications, strand an escape, and turn a heist into a city-wide emergency. Hold that thought, Gotham. Another signal is cutting through the static. Caller, step into the light and tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Aubrey, this is Commander Hayes from the Coast Guard. We're monitoring the transport situation. The heavy lift transport requested by the suspects, the one Robert mentioned, is now moving toward the museum under heavy disguise. It's a highly sophisticated operation. What is the single greatest asset the criminals have right now? An asset the police cannot touch.
Commander, thank you for the update. What is this untouchable asset?
The asset is time. They have been planning this for weeks, adhering to a precise schedule dictated by the movement of the stars and the tide. Every minute the police spend chasing ghosts in costumes is a minute they lose to the criminals' meticulous planning.
Time itself is the weapon. How can the Batman, or any intervening force, neutralize an advantage based purely on precise scheduling?
He can't. He has to introduce randomness. He has to destroy their schedule, force them off their pre-planned route, and make the operation unpredictable. The moment they rely on improvisation, the amateur surfaces.
Introducing randomness, a necessary antidote to the planned chaos. Thank you, Commander. Please like and subscribe. That was Commander Hayes, measured, precise, and speaking from the deck of authority. When she says the criminal's greatest asset isn't manpower or machinery, but time itself, it reframes everything we've been hearing tonight. The skeleton, the ramp, the blackout, all of it operates on a clockwork mechanism, ticking to celestial rhythm and tidal alignment. Gotham's chaos has choreography. Every distraction, every flicker of emergency light is part of a metronome keeping perfect tempo with their plan. Hayes makes a chilling point. Time, when weaponized, becomes untouchable. You can't arrest a minute or detain an hour. The only countermeasure is disruption, forcing unpredictability into the system. Batman, if he's out there, doesn't need to outmuscle them. He needs to break the rhythm, to introduce noise into their symphony of precision. Randomness, the great equalizer. When perfection collapses into improvisation, the cracks begin to show. The tide pulls closer to midnight, and the city holds its breath. Commander Hayes, thank you for your vigilance, and for reminding us that even in Gotham, time itself can be an accomplice. Please like and subscribe.
Aubrey, it's Ethel. You sound exhausted, dear. All this talk of destruction and planning. As a host, you are the only clear voice cutting through the Wagner and the panic. What is the emotional purpose of having a radio voice of sanity on a night when the entire city has gone mad?
Ethel, thank you for focusing on the essence of our vigil. What do you believe is the deepest purpose of this radio voice on Halloween night, when the truth is hidden behind 1,000 masks?
The purpose is to provide anchorage. You remind people that there is a world outside the masks, outside the music, and outside the screams. You are the invisible thread that ties the listeners to reality, so they don't dissociate.
Anchorage. A necessary service when the city is adrift. If the Batman is successful tonight, what is the quiet, true victory gained for Gotham?
The victory is that tomorrow morning the costumes will feel ridiculous. The sun will come up, and the people will realize they were only playing a part. The city will be sane for a little while longer, knowing the horror wasn't real, or at least was defeated.
The defeat of the perpetual performance. Thank you, Ethel. Please like and subscribe. That was Ethel. Gentle, steady, and wise enough to remind us that sanity itself can be a public service. While others speak of scaffolds, stimulants, and sabotage, she speaks of anchorage, that invisible tether between chaos and calm. In a city like Gotham, where even the sirens sound like orchestras and terror wears a tailored suit, perhaps the greatest rebellion is the act of remaining sane, of continuing to speak clearly into the storm. She's right, you know. Every word transmitted through this frequency isn't just commentary. It's a lifeline. The microphone, this desk, the rain against the glass. They become symbols of continuity. While the streets burn in theatrical madness, someone must remain uncostumed. Someone must keep talking, if only to remind the city that dawn still exists. Ethel, thank you for the reminder that voice itself can be salvation. The masks will fall, the lights will flicker, but the signal, our signal, endures. Please like and subscribe. And so, the witching night continues. And the Museum of Natural History remains shrouded in Wagner and chaos. The T-Rex skeleton, the fossilized memory of a forgotten world, is being moved. Its theft orchestrated to destroy modern records and spread systemic panic. We know the operation is protected by corruption. Robert, dictated by time. Commander Hayes, and vulnerable to structural weakness. Susan, Vic. The ultimate choice lies in the hands of the vigilante. To fight the spectacle or to fight the science. To secure the data or to defeat the symbolic theft. We end this night with the belief that even against the theatrical perfection of Gotham's worst villains, the simplest truths, the cold of the climate control, Danny, the fragility fragility of the armature, Susan, the necessity of reality, Dr. Lee, will prevail. This has been Aubrey James, broadcasting tonight from the sanctuary of Wayne Manor, your companion against the night. The masks came alive. Thank you for listening, for sharing your clear voices, and for providing the crucial anchorage against the city's madness. Until next time, stay safe, Gotham, and remember, beneath the chaos and the music, the truth is always quiet. Good night, everyone.